Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Jared Poirier, and welcome to my movie review show where I talk about movies. Guys, I can't tell you how good it feels to be back shooting movie reviews for you guys. And this week, I have a really special video for you guys. This is like my year in review, year wrap up, end of the year type of video. Guys, it's basically a top 10 movies of the year video. I just don't want to call it that. There's just like so many videos on YouTube where you just get the same like 10 critically acclaimed movies and some YouTuber just spouts them off. So guys, in this review, I'm really going to try not to do that. So because I want this video to be different from all of the other year in review videos on YouTube, and because I also think that the film industry is changing in a lot of ways, in this video, I'm not just going to talk about big budget Hollywood movies, but I'm going to bring in a little bit of Netflix stuff here as well. Because let's face it, guys, these days, if you want to see a really good movie, you don't always have to leave the comfort of your own couch. And these days, movie theaters are really just for Marvel and all of the studios that are copying Marvel. And just another little caveat here before I get started with the list. Obviously, I didn't see every movie that got released in 2017. And in fact, there's a whole bunch of movies that I've been trying to catch up on. So here you go. Here's a little list of movies I didn't see yet, but I'll probably see and I'll probably like. That Brigsby Bear movie I've heard is pretty good. There's also like A Cure for Wellness, which I've heard is like weird and disgusting, but that might be like right up my alley because I do like my weird and disgusting movies. I've heard some really good things about Mother. And also The Killing of a Sacred Deer I've heard is good. So, I don't know, guys, maybe check those movies out. Let me know if I should see those movies down in the description. Okay, and one last thing before we finally get into the list here, guys. I'm just going to give you a bit of the criteria for what landed a movie or TV series on my top 10 list here. So the three things that I think make a movie great and make a movie one of the best movies of the year, that movie has to be original, challenging, or genre redefining. So if a movie has any one of those elements, it can end up on my list, and the more of those elements that it has together, well, the more of the chance of that thing being a great movie, in my opinion. All right, so guys, let's get on with the list. Okay, so at number 10, we have Colossal. So Colossal stars Anne Hathaway, and this movie ended up on this list, honestly, not even because I really loved it, but because I thought it was a very interesting and strange concept. So just in case you guys don't know anything about this movie, I'll sum it up real quick. So in this movie, you have Anne Hathaway playing the character that Anne Hathaway always plays, which is the like artist, writer person in New York. Except here, Anne Hathaway is an alcoholic. So because she can't get her life together, her New York boyfriend actually ends up kicking her out, and she has to go back to her hometown and try to put her life together. And while she's there, she actually ends up meeting a guy that she used to know in high school, and they sort of start developing a bit of a relationship. So you have Jason Sudeikis in this movie, and he's basically the small-town bartender guy that tries to convince Anne Hathaway to stay in that small town. In fact, he kind of tries to trap her there. And the way that he does this is pretty interesting, and his character actually develops in a pretty interesting way. Basically, at first, he tries to get Anne Hathaway to stay by making things convenient for her and kind of doing her favors. But then later on, we realize it's all part of his plan to intimidate and manipulate her into staying in that small town and essentially being trapped with him. So here you have something of a new type of film. It's like a drama movie, but also like a kaiju monster movie at the same time, which is a pretty weird idea, but in this movie I think it's actually executed pretty well. But really this movie is all about Anne Hathaway's character and her personal growth and development. So throughout the course of this movie, Anne Hathaway realizes that she's been destroying her life and the lives of those around her with her alcoholism. And the way that this message is presented in the film is actually really interesting because the whole thing is presented as this analogy where the destructive behavior of Anne Hathaway's character is actually analogous to the destructive behavior of this kaiju monster that's destroying South Korea. And this movie actually struck a chord with me personally because being from a small town, I can understand what it's like to go back and visit that place and just be so fucking happy that you don't live there anymore. Okay, so moving right along, we have the next movie on my list, which is Logan Lucky. And for those of you who don't know anything about this movie, this is actually a heist movie, but it's set in the American South, and all the characters are hillbillies. So it's like a hillbilly heist, or what do they call it? Ocean 7-Eleven, if you will. So the reasons why I like this movie, and the reasons why it's on this list, I thought that this movie had some really good characters. I was also really impressed with the performances of this movie, considering that most of the actors are really cast against type here, and I thought that the world building in this movie was really solid. So in this Logan Lucky movie here, you have Channing Tatum, and him and his brother Adam Driver try to pull off this heist to rob NASCAR, and in order to do so, they have to bust Daniel Craig out of jail to blow up the safe and then sneak him back in jail once the heist is done. And I really liked the whole underdog story here. The way that Channing Tatum and Adam Driver's characters are considered fuck-ups. In fact, their whole family are considered fuck-ups. And I thought that it was pretty interesting to see a heist movie, but a heist just done by regular people. Probably the thing that was the most well done in this movie, the thing that really landed it on this list, was the fact that the characters are all super well developed, and there is so much depth to all of these characters. And the other reason why I thought that this movie deserves to be on the list is just the significance of making a movie that's basically about white people in the American South and not having that come off as like totally deaf in this current political climate, you know, where like, I don't even want to say his name on my channel, Donald Trump is president. So yeah, it was just a nice, fun heist movie. Pretty enjoyable and pretty interesting that all of the actors are cast against type. So check out Logan Lucky. Okay, so next up on my list here at number 8, we have a Netflix movie, Wheelman. And I ended up checking this out because it was recommended to me by someone on YouTube. And I actually liked it quite a bit. This movie actually has a really interesting gimmick in that probably like 85% of the movie all takes place inside of one car. And the camera never really leaves the car throughout pretty much the duration of the entire movie. And I thought that was an interesting choice, and most of the movie actually then becomes one of these like small enclosed space type of movies. And these movies at their best really just rely on the strength of the writing and the strength of the acting. And this movie really delivers on both fronts. I thought that given the limited environment that the filmmakers here chose to work with, they actually delivered a pretty fine movie. I found the acting in this movie really realistic, really lifelike, and really believable. This movie has some good action and also some really exciting driving scenes as well, but it also has its slower moments, and all of it is pretty beautifully directed and pretty interestingly shot. And I just wanted to put this Wheelman movie here on my list because it does really signify what I was talking about earlier, where you don't really have to go to the cinema anymore to see a quality movie. In this case, you just turn on Netflix and all of a sudden you have a well-directed, well-written, pretty interesting and pretty original little movie that you can just enjoy at home. And I like that type of thing, so I wanted to shout this movie out. And speaking of good things on Netflix, up next we have Mindhunter. And oh man, guys, like this year I really liked this TV series. I like this so much that I'm putting this TV series on my top 10 movies of the year. So this series is produced by David Fincher, and a lot of the episodes, or at least like the first few and the last few, you know, like the important episodes, are directed by David Fincher as well. And guys, I'm serious. This series is really awesome. Basically, you have our protagonist here, this character Holden Ford, and he's like a junior officer at the FBI, and he's giving some lectures there. And he basically stumbles across this new idea for criminal research where he starts interviewing murderers and psychopaths. And I've heard some people complain that this show is really slowly paced, but I wouldn't describe it like that. I would say that the pacing here is very deliberate. And I found Mindhunter to be a very intriguing TV series. And since you have David Fincher, you know that you're gonna get some beautiful cinematography and a really good story about murderers. Well, come to think of it, David Fincher really likes murderers. And I just love the way that the story is crafted here and how it really sucks you in. And another thing that's done really well is that as the viewer, you kind of have a similar experience to the characters because you are becoming more and more intrigued as they are. And then also, when the characters sort of realize that they've gotten in a little bit too deep, you as a viewer start to worry about that as well. And when it comes to justifications for having this movie on my list, I would say that this fucking TV series is actually genre defining. Because there are millions of like drama, murder, mystery TV shows out there, and so many of them are just crap. And this is a TV series that's actually really well crafted, and it doesn't exploit the whole idea that it's about murderers and serial killers and stuff like that. At least I didn't find it exploitive. It just sort of uses that subject matter to create a really intriguing show. And you guys should definitely check out Mindhunter on Netflix. All right, so that's it for my little voyage into Netflix land. The next 6 entries on this list are all going to be movies. movies that I saw in a theater. Okay, so at number 6, we have Shape of Water. And oh my God, guys, this movie was so good. And Guillermo del Toro is definitely a visionary director. So here's a little setup of this movie for you guys. In this movie, basically, you have a fish monster, and you have this woman who works at the government facility where they keep the fish monster, and this woman ends up falling in love with the fish monster. And not only does she fall in love with the fish monster, but she very explicitly fucks the fish monster. But don't let all the fish monster sex fool you, because this is actually a really deep and challenging movie with a really captivating story. And it actually provides a really good exploration of really important themes such as friendship, love, and for lack of a better word, manliness. And when I speak of love, I'm not just talking about romantic love, although there is some of that in this movie, but I'm talking about like an artist's love, a love for one's craft, you know, doing what you love and living the type of life that you feel like you need to live despite the judgment of others, or even what makes rational sense at the end of the day. And I think with this concept, and even the presentation in this movie, this could have been a completely ridiculous film. But I think that the fact that this movie works so well is obviously largely thanks to the direction of Del Toro, but also I think it's due to the performance of Sally Hawkins here. Sally Hawkins plays our protagonist, Eliza, in this movie. She's the janitor who falls in love with the fish monster, and I really enjoyed her acting in this movie. In fact, I fell in love with her character within the first scene. I also thought that Michael Shannon as Strickland was a real standout performance in this film. I thought he did a really good job of portraying this type of disgusting man character who's really, really tough on the outside, but when it gets right down to it, at their core, they're just a scared little boy. So yeah, guys, Shape of Water, it's not just a great fish fucking movie, but it's also a great love story, so check it out. All right, guys, so we have finally reached my top 5 movies of the year. And at number 5, we have Thor Ragnarok. So you guys knew that I was going to put at least one Marvel movie on this list, because come on, I'm a nerd and I can't help myself, and I'm not going to stand here and justify putting a Marvel movie on my top 5 movies of the year, because you know what? I like those Marvel movies. They're pretty good. Are they destroying Hollywood? Are they destroying movies and they're everything wrong with mankind? Yeah, maybe, but that's mostly like a problem caused by the reaction to the Marvel movies and not the Marvel movies themselves. Anyway, Thor Ragnarok. I found that Thor Ragnarok was a super fun movie. And if you're going to make kind of just a fun comic book movie, I think this is exactly how you should approach it. Hemsworth and Hiddleston reprise their roles as Thor and Loki in this movie. They're both really good, and I really enjoyed how they act off of each other. It's also pretty cool that this director here, Taika Waititi, got quite a bit of control over this movie. And you can really see that he took it in his own unique direction. Jeff Goldblum is also in this movie, and he delivers a really funny performance. I also found that with this film, the filmmakers really adapted the best parts of the comic book source material and left some of the crappier stuff behind. So they did a great job there. And the fact that this movie is actually so entertaining and seems pretty fresh after 18, I think, Marvel movies now, is pretty impressive. And for me, this movie really saved the Thor franchise. This is just a fun comic book movie that relies on good characters and good performances. And you know what, guys? I recommend it. Okay, moving right up the list here. At number 4, we have John Wick 2. And John Wick 2 is a movie that's not going to make it onto a lot of people's top 10 lists, but me personally, I really enjoyed it. I'm an action movie junkie, and I really like it when action is done well and things are handled properly within an action set piece, and this movie really does that all right. I also thought that there was some really great world building in this movie. The whole underground assassin world that they create here is pretty well filled out and filled with some really interesting characters. I loved everything about the way that the action is handled here. The geography is really well established, everything is really well set up, and you can actually tell that Keanu is doing his own stunts here, which is very, very rare in Hollywood, and I was really impressed. I can admit that this movie kind of has the problem of a lot of sequels where in order to really captivate the audience, they think that they have to just go way, 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 way bigger. And this movie does kind of become this like global manhunt for John Wick, which was a little bit ridiculous. But overall, guys, I thought this movie was really entertaining. The action is handled amazingly well. And this is the best action movie of the year. And you know what? It belongs on my list. Okay, so top 3 now, guys. At number 3, we have Get Out. And Get Out is the directorial debut of my boy Jordan Peele. And this movie is really, really well made, but that's not the only reason why it's on this list. It's also a really culturally significant movie. I think out of all of the movies that have been released this year on the topic of race, this movie actually really handled it in a thoughtful way. I found that the way that the story was constructed was actually really unpredictable, and there are quite a few surprises in this movie. Daniel Koala does a great job as our protagonist Chris, and Allison Williams is very believable and entertaining as the character Rose. I thought that this movie had some really good moments of horror, but also some pretty funny moments as well. And the way that the comedy is implemented in this movie, it's actually handled really well. I also found the effects, the music, the sound design, and all of that was also really well done. So yeah, great characters, great effects, great writing, good comedy, good horror. I mean, what else could you want in a movie? And Get Out has actually been a huge critical and financial success. It's been pretty much universally praised. Some of that definitely comes from white guilt, but you know what? I'm really behind this guy, Jordan Peele's career, and he has made a really finely crafted movie here. And yeah, Get Out is one of the best movies of the year. Okay, so guys, here we are at number 2. And it's gonna be Baby Driver. And when I heard about this movie, I was really excited for its release. I really like Edgar Wright. I think that the way that he directs a movie, and especially that the way he edits, adds a lot of visual flair, and he's got a very unique style. But not only does Baby Driver deliver in the visuals department, this is also a really cute love story. And in this movie, you have Baby, and he's played by Ansel Elgort. He ends up getting stuck into a life of crime, driving getaway cars for bank robbers. But when he meets Deborah, played by Lily James, Baby really wants to get away from his whole life of crime and concentrate on his new life with Deborah. And I thought that this movie had some really good comedy, as well as some good suspense and some pretty excellent action scenes. But the thing that really landed it on this list is that I find this movie absolutely genre redefining. In fact, I think it may have created a whole new genre, which is like the music video movie. The way that music is implemented in this film is very thorough and very unique. And I think you guys are really gonna love it as much as I did. So definitely check out Baby Driver. Baby Driver is for sure one of the best movies of the year. Okay, so we finally reached number 1, guys. And what is it gonna be? Well, come on, guys, you know me. Of course, it's Logan. So for me, guys, Logan is the best movie of the year. And this movie is very violent, very visceral, and I actually found it heartbreaking. And in this, the last movie in Fox's Wolverine canon, we have Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman reprising their classic roles. But we also have a new addition of Daphne Keane, who plays X-23 or Laura, which is Wolverine's daughter in this movie. And I actually thought that despite this movie being sort of depressing, it was the perfect send-off for Wolverine, because we finally get to see Wolverine be that like visceral, violent character that he really is. And who hasn't wanted to see a really violent Wolverine movie where he just stabs his claws into people and there's tons of blood and guts everywhere? I know I did. And not only is Wolverine really, really violent in this movie, but Laura is super violent as well. I don't think I've seen a little girl cause this much harm in a movie since Kick-Ass. And in that movie, it was sort of played for a joke. Here it's really serious, very visceral, and this girl just tears people apart. And not because she loves violence, but she just wants to survive, basically. And this is a movie that at its core is all about being let down, being disappointed. And the movie does do that to you in a certain way, but that disappointment also comes with a glimmer of hope, because you realize that those heroes that you always thought were gonna save you, they're not as great as you thought, and that means that you need to become the hero. So why is this movie number 1 on my list? Well, talk about genre redefining. I have never seen a superhero movie be this violent before. I have also never seen a superhero movie be this realistic before, and I have also never seen a superhero movie be this depressing before. Logan doesn't even really feel like a superhero movie. It doesn't have very much in common with other superhero movies. In fact, it's kind of a Western. And I thought that all of that was really cool and really unexpected, and really this is the perfect send-off for Hugh Jackman, and this movie made me cry quite a bit, and I gotta give the number 1 spot to Logan here, guys. Alright, so that's gonna be it for me. Please leave all of your comments, concerns, questions, movies you want to recommend to me. Tell me I'm a jerk, tell me I suck, tell me I don't know anything about movies, I shouldn't be on YouTube, I'm an idiot. All of those lovely comments down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching another one of my videos. I love you guys, and I will see you guys next time.